Welcome, indie game developers, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour, the best dang game dev podcast on the planet. Today, we're being joined by Nando Sarmiento, where we'll be talking about letting data guide your game development.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
In our live magical podcast, we give game developers the chance to hear real game dev stories from real game developers, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. This is a mostly unedited recording of an event we host in our Discord every single week, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So feel free to join us for the next one and ask your own questions live. As always, I'm your host here, Willem Delventhal, headmaster of the Indie Game Academy and the Wizard of Games. And joining me today is Nando Sarmiento. Nando is the chief creative officer at Lemon Chili and has a bit of an interesting background for us. I don't think we have sat down to talk about specifically data in quite some time. So I am very curious to have a data-oriented approach to making a wonderful game, because I know that I myself spend a lot too much time thinking about how I feel versus just collating some data and seeing how all of the players feel. So welcome to the show, Nando. I'm excited to have you here. What are you having for lunch today?
Hello, thanks for having me, William. It's great to be here. And for lunch, I'm guessing I'm going to have milanesas. I don't know if you guys know what those are. I'm from Argentina, so that's very normal here. It's a breaded meat.
Okay, breaded meat. Sounds good. I just had bread and egg. Hard to beat.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Are you cooking this yourself? Is it somebody else cooking it?
Oh, my girlfriend.
Okay, amazing. That's always a benefit. I have found my way. So my current partner is how do we say it? She cooks for sustenance. You know, it is efficient cooking. It's almost the same thing every time. It's highly healthy, but it's never like she never really like pushes outside of the box. And for one of the first times in my life, maybe. I have wound up almost completely taking over the cooking in the relationship, and it's actually been a joy. The deal is she cleans, which is fantastic. I hate cleaning, and I cook, and it's the best. I've been really enjoying it. Yeah.
Awesome. I like to cook myself as well.
Good, yeah. Awesome. So Nando here is, as we said, the chief creative officer at Lemon Chili. But Lemon Chili are the creators of Super Farming Boy, which is a genre-mixed farming adventure celebrated as the 2025 Apple App Store Awards finalist, with all kinds of cute features for it. Now, getting anywhere on the Apple App Store these days is impressive on its own. It is, as most of our marketplaces these days, incredibly saturated. So finding your way up the ranks of an app store, of the App Store, is impressive. I'm curious to hear, your recommendations to us about how to rise in those ranks, and in particular, how we might use data to do that. So your topic for today was letting data guide your development, and I'm curious if you would give us that 101 introduction to how we can do exactly that in our own games, Nando.
Okay. In terms of data, I mean, my background is mostly creative. I'm a film director. I studied cinema, so I come from a very different place from data. But I think that the basics are: you need to see what's going on with whatever you're working on. It might be a website or a small game or a big game or whatever, an app, whatever it is. You need to see the data and then make decisions based off the data, but be creative with when you take the decision. You know, it just there's a lot of things that mostly people who deal with data are not creative people. So when they data, they feel like they have to do whatever the data is telling them. Like, for instance, there's a Ben Stiller movies are doing great, so we need to do more Ben Stiller movies. So you hire Ben Stiller, and that's it, you know. The cinema, the catastrophic kind of movies that were very popular in the 90s. Oh, these kind of movies are making a lot of money, so we have to make another. So there's not a creative input there. You're just repeating whatever is going on, that's working, but that's not the way it works. What you need to see is try to understand the patterns and trying to understand what it's the thing that's behind that thing that's working, and think of something else, but not the same thing, because the same thing would be like a me too product thing, or a whatever. It would be like a copycat of something
Hmm.
else working, but that never works. So that, that, that's the most difficult part of dealing with data.
Yeah, that's
um,
interesting. I have the privilege of working with a lot of juniors, and so I see a lot of the beginning processes of how people get started in a specific space. And what you're alluding to, I think, suggests a problem that I have definitely seen corroborated, which is I tend to see people either lean really hard into the, air quotes, creative side of development, where they're doing things simply because they feel like it'll be fun. And then I see people leaning hard into the data side, and they get stuck, as you suggest, in very literally interpreting the data, as opposed to marrying those two things, um, and seeing that happy medium between doing something simply because it's fun or it feels right, and doing something because the data tells you to do it.
Yes, I mean it's a delicate balance, because you need the data. I mean, you are doing data because you want to see what's working or what's not working, or if it. I mean, there's two ways of looking at different data. One's the data
Mhm.
of what's working in the business side of things, like a marketing thing, and the other is the doing the data from your app, what's working on your app. In terms of where is the churn, where is the person getting bored, and living your experience. So what this works on for a Netflix show as well. And what moment is the user not, deciding not to watch any more of this show or play any more of this game?
Mm.
And the data doesn't tell you what to do in that cases. They're just telling you this user dropped off here, so you need to try and to understand what's going on there. Is there a bug? Most of the times there's a bug.
Mhm.
It's not that the game is wrong, or sometimes it's something that the game is not communicating well, like a tutorial. In terms of we work with Google Analytics and Firebase, so we tag a lot of moments in the tutorial, for instance, to see what's going on. But sometimes you see a big drop off from install to getting to the first screen, and that's a bug, mainly of things or memory thing. But once you start analyzing the drop off, from step to step, and when you see that the drop off is like 3%, 3%, 3%, 4%, and suddenly it's 10%. So you see, okay, the normal drop off should be like 3% between step and step, but when it's more than that, like 10%, 15%, you can see, okay, there's a problem here. There might be a memory issue, there might be a bug issue. Let's look at that first. But maybe the issue is we are not communicating something well, or maybe the game is getting bored here. So what should we do? Oh, the data doesn't tell you what to do. So you can do a lot of A/B testing, and a lot of and provide ideas. Maybe bounce off ideas with the team and try to be the most creative possible. Or maybe you just need to tweak the balance of the game to make it easier.
Mm.
Mostly easier. That's the main way of doing things, because you are playing same game for years now, so you're very good at it. And maybe a newcomer is not as good, and maybe it's getting bored because he or she can't get to through certain challenges that you can do easily. So make it easier and faster, and basically that's the way to deal with the data, in terms of usability, user experience.
Mm.
um, but in terms of in the marketing side, it's much more difficult, right? Because where is the data coming from? You can ask ChatGPT, or look for
Mhm.
Google, or look for benchmarks, and it's always difficult, to analyze that and say, okay, I'm going to do this instead of that. In terms of Super Farming Boy, we took an analytics approach, on or a data approach on why we decided to do the game, or this game in particular. But it had to do with a lot of factors. But the most important factor was that our company deals with works on an application called Boop Kids, which is basically a subscription service for kids. And this
Mm.
is our most popular product, and this is our bread and butter, right? So what this app is like a Netflix for kids, which has video, books, and games. And in these games, we did a lot of mini games. One of the mini games that we made was Super Farming Boy. It was a very short game that we made. It was 3 months it took to make, and we did a bunch of others. But this one retained really well, had good retention. So we said, okay, this one is working. The data is telling us there's something here. Okay, so let's work on this one, but more as a spin-off, right? Like a premium game outside of our subscription platform. So we made the decision of from data, 100%, as well as we decided to make a farming game, not because we like I like farming games, but we decided to make farming games because it's mostly in terms of if you plan on doing a high retention, a game that has high retention, it's a good genre.
Mhm.
If you plan, and if the game doesn't succeed as a premium, you can turn it into a free to play easierly than an arcade game, for instance, or an adventure game, because you have all the shops and all the stuff to sell in-app purchases or whatever. So,
Right.
and we knew that the farming game space, you had Stardew Valley, and maybe that's it. There wasn't a lot of things, mostly on mobile. There are things, but they're very similar. We wanted to do something else, something different. So that's where we based off our decision, was with this data that we knew that this IP was working from our data, from BookKids, from our app, and from the investigations that we did on the marketing side, and having the experience of releasing 2 games that weren't successful. They are good games, but they weren't financially successful, and they are action games. They are free to play action games, and we realized we didn't have to do that again because they weren't. It wasn't, well, not for us at least, right? Everybody has their own approach to things, and maybe you can do a great action game and I can't. It depends a lot on the talents of your team.
Interesting. There's a question this brings to mind pretty quickly. So you noticed that you had a game that was working on your subscription platform well, and you invested into that game. That is a really simple, powerful application of data that I think people still don't necessarily do. There's a lot of moments where you might see something working and where you can double down and invest. So maybe I have my game on a couple of platforms, for instance, and I notice that it's working really well on one platform, or I notice it's working really well in one country, let's say. I've seen some devs have that before where it totally fails to find market success in the US, but then like India picks it up, or it winds up popular. I had one person whose game wound up extremely popular in the Ukraine for I don't know, reasons. So I'm curious. That moment is that moment is interesting, and realizing that is powerful, and is something that I think people often skip because they just aren't really tracking the data is the biggest reason. But when you notice something like that, when you go, okay, here's a hole, here's a lesson from my data, and somewhere where I could double down and invest more heavily in this trend. So I could invest into Ukraine marketing. I could invest into this platform that seems to be working well. I could invest in this game that did well on our subscription. Something that always comes to mind for me is like, how much do you invest in that thing that's doing well versus the other areas that maybe could be continued growth vectors? Like, if let's say that example where I'm noticing the game is doing really well in the Ukraine, I could double down and be like, all right, this is a game for the Ukraine audience. That's okay. And put more energy into marketing in the Ukraine and maybe building for their specific themes and stories and stuff like that. Or I could invest more strongly worldwide, globally, or in different countries or in the US. How do you split your resources to follow the trends you notice because of data versus continuing to experiment?
It's difficult at the beginning. At the beginning, you try a lot of things, right? So I'm going to. That's the best approach. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do. Just do a lot of it. So just have 10 examples of something or versions of something before making a decision. Once you have the data, we really look at the data. People think that looking at the data and acting on it means that the creativity stopped and ended. and that now there's no room for experimentation or no room for creativity, which I think is dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a creative person. It sounds really lame to say that, but I mean, I'm an artistic. Let's say it like that. I'm an artist before anything else. I made movies. I draw. I wrote manga. That's up on Comixology. I mean, I did a bunch of things before doing games. A bunch of things. And data came really late in my life, right? When I started doing apps, because
Mm-hmm.
that was like 10 years ago. But I mean, I'm doing things for a long, long, long time. Um, and I saw data always as an opportunity to be creative and to be creative off the data. So how much of the of if we experiment or something or whatever, we look at this data 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like 100%, we focus on that. If it's working on Ukraine, go there, because you need the money. You need. I mean, it's very very difficult to see something working. Let's begin there.
Mm-hmm.
It's super difficult. If you see that something is working and you're not doubling down on it, that's a big mistake, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people around you that are doing lots of things, and you might, not get there in time, and somebody else will. So if you whatever when we see something working, I mean, we do analytics on everything. We do our own user acquisition, so that means doing our own ads,
Mm-hmm.
and doing A/B testing and doing a lot of blah blah blah. And so we everything has A/B test, everything has experiments, but they are always based on data. What has the best click-through rate? What has the best retention? And this sometimes pisses me off completely, because this is, I mean, one says, okay, let's do 100% the data. Let's take the data and work on it 100%. That's I agree on that. But there's something that I don't like, that is this algorithmic processes that YouTube has, in terms of ads, or for instance Apple or Google has, in terms of what kind of audience they get to click on your game, right? Because they start showing up your game because on the icon and the description and the screenshots, and they have a certain algorithm that gets clicks on certain audience, and that audience is the one that it gets feed your product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the bad thing of that is that you're caged pretty quickly, and if you're successful, you're caged even more. So the bigger your success, the smaller the cage. So when you try to break from the cage and try to do something else, it doesn't work, because the algorithm has already packed you. And okay, this is for instance, our app Boop Kids is very strong on iPads and females,
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't matter how much I try to make it more gender neutral on the screenshot side, on change the icon or do experiments. Always what I already have works best,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I hate that, because that's the algorithm already making a decision on your work, and just breaking off from that, it's something that they don't. I mean, how to explain it? They don't want you to break from that, because that's profitable for them as
Mm-hmm.
it is. So what you have to do is relaunch an app, relaunch a video on YouTube, relaunch. But relaunching is very expensive, because you need to do all the intelligence and all the learning, and all the algorithm should learn again. And maybe you find that it wasn't profitable. What was profitable was the prior thing. So it's something difficult to work on, but it's not impossible. I mean, there has been some cases where we found like eureka moments, like, oh, we had to do this, and 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 that happened based off data and based off a lot of experimentation, a lot of experiments on ads, on analytics. No, sorry, on a user experience, on trying different games, what you have to do is always,
Hmm.
try something new
Yeah.
at all times, whatever that is.
A lot of experimentation. It's a really interesting implication of the algorithm, the grand algorithm that is present on every single platform that has any kind of recommendation engine that I honestly hadn't really thought of before. That once the algorithm sees something for you, sees a specific type of audience or a specific type of person who's going to like your video, they double down on that because that's what works for their algorithm, and therefore you wind up in that box. That's an interesting one that I hadn't really considered before. Now, Nando, I'm curious here. So the things you're talking about are already interesting and valuable. I'd love to know how you got started. What is the origin story for Nando that wound up getting you into this space? So where are you in games now, and how did you get there?
As I said before, I'm a film. When I was a really very little kid, I wrote a lot. I did some experimentation coding on PAT on DOS. When I was a kid, I made like a bunch of games with Click and Play, or the Games Factory, which now is Click Team Fusion, which I still use for prototypes.
Hmm.
Um, then I started doing movies. I
Okay.
started doing like home movies, and I studied cinema because I wanted to be a film director. I did a bunch of movies, like medium sized shorts and mediums. One feature. My first movie was a feature film, and then I started doing visual effects. I did a lot of visual effects for yes, that's Click and Play. That's somebody plays it on the chat. I did a lot of visual effects for movies, here in Argentina mostly, and then I co-founded a CGI animation studio called PepperMelon, which was one of the top 10 motion graphics companies in the world.
Hmm.
This is year 2008, 2007. We did a bunch of work for MTV, VH1, Viacom, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Google, Microsoft. We did a lot of work, like more than 100 commercials. We were represented in the United States by the same reps that rep Pixar. So
Wow.
we were like, we had a 25 people in the studio. It was a very crazy moment. But at one time, what happened was, honest. I was playing Plants vs Zombies, like Plants vs Zombies one, and it blew me away. I said, okay, I can do this. That's what happened. I said, okay, I can do this. I know how to code. I remember how to code when I was younger with Click and Play, and I can do this. So I started doing a Plants vs Zombies just to get the hang of it. And I was sick of commercial work because clients suck. So yeah, it was a pain in the ass, and it
Uh-huh.
wasn't making me a lot of money. So we said, okay, I mean, we did a lot of great work in terms of getting awards, but not getting money. That sort of, work, which still happens to me now. But again, so I decided to try apps. So we began. The way to get into that was a very weird way. I knew I had to create a team, but I had never made a game myself. So, I mean, I had made games, but on the 90s, like in 1994. So, how do I get people in Argentina to trust me? People trusted me because I funded the animation company, and people respected me here and internationally. But that's a completely different business. I mean, to be a game designer is completely difficult. So I had to prove it to myself as well. So what I did was a very, very, very extremely weird experiment that came off um, very good in the end. It was I created like this persona called Little Nando, which is myself, wearing a helmet, like a Daft Punk thing, and I started doing like a live video
Huh.
game experience. So basically, it's a live game master on a dance floor. Um, the reason I got to do this is because for many years I was a VJ. The VJ on parties is doing the visuals, and I did a ton of work in Creamfields, which was the biggest event here in Argentina, but it's international, right? But I did a lot of work there, and I did the visuals for Hernan Cattaneo, Jimmy Van Em, Yankee XL.
Hmm.
So I got to do that here in Argentina. So I got people who knew me from that as well. So I said, okay, let's do like a VJ game, right? So I started doing like this project called Tough Coded, which basically I had music going and created a game, but the people line up to play with an Xbox controller through Bluetooth. So it's a competition game, two people against myself, every song. So I did that for a few years. The project was so interesting that I got invited to South by Southwest. I did the South by Southwest Gaming Awards. I went to the Tokyo Game Show. I won two awards there. I went to Mexico to the GDC like four times. I did a bunch of things, a bunch of traveling, also to France. And after that, I said, okay, now I can get people to trust me, right? And with that, I created a small team in Argentina, and we did a couple of free-to-play games, which were the ones that I'm telling you that they weren't successful in
Hmm.
terms of business side. But we did a lot of analytics. Why did we do a lot of data? It's because I I partnered with my brother who has a company, which is the umbrella company who owns our company, which
Hmm.
that they do heavy user acquisition through carrier billing. That's basically SMS, and they do a lot of user acquisition through YouTube platforms, Google platforms, whatever. So they had an analytics team. So they have complete analytics background because that's all data. That's nothing, mostly nothing creative. It's mostly data and analyzing, audiences and how to get people to click your ad. And so we got some of that team into our team, and that's what made me learn. They teach me how to work with data, how to see data, how to and it's not difficult really. It's basically spreadsheets and to want to be intelligent and to how to be smart enough on how should I look at the data and what kind of questions should I ask the data. But it's basically a spreadsheet and that's it, right?
Yep.
And to cross things. So we after that we did the Boop Kids, which is the subscription service, and that was successful. And based off, we started the business.
Wow. That's such a fascinating story, such a fun story. The I want to call out for a lot of people in this room trying to identify or create your own unique identity in the game industry can be rough, can be hard. Getting hired, especially right now in games, is like ludicrously difficult. And so there's more and more people who are launching their own studios, and as a result, it's more and more important for you to be able to stand out from the crowd in your own unique way. You know, what is special about you, and what is special about your studio, and what do you do that's different from everybody else? And so I love the fact, that you wound up creating this sort of like entertainment identity specifically to lay the groundwork for your game studio. It's such a creative solution to the problem of standing out and to the problem of building trust in your audience. And so I love that as a tactic at all. Like, what a great story. Thank you for that.
It was yes, and I would like more people to do it,
Mm.
others, because I was when the reason I started doing that, it was because, well, I understood marketing and I understood that I had to market myself.
Mhm.
And I read this book called Positioning, which is a marketing book that I recommend to everyone here. It's an excellent book, super short, but and
Mhm.
it's not the marketing, the bad marketing. It's the interesting marketing, right?
Mhm.
It's from the 1980s, I think. And based on from that and my own experiences, I saw that the way to get into the business was to go to events. But if you go to an event and just show your game again, aside from other games on a computer, on a desktop, or on your iPhone, you're just one more of the bunch, right? So it's very difficult to get the attention of people. So being the only way to play my game was playing it against myself during the music moment of the shows, or the mini concerts. I did one show with Chipsel, for instance, two shows with Chipsel, for
Mm.
instance, and I loved her. And the thing is that when I pitched my game to the events like South by Southwest and whatever, it took them like less than an hour to get back to me and say, "Come here, like come," and they didn't even play the game. It was just the concept of, oh, the live game master, and the videos that I had. I had like a nice trailer, to showcase the product. But they wanted me like right away. So that was an interesting way to meet people. I met everyone thanks to that game. Everyone. Like
Yeah.
everyone from the indie core, from the US, yeah, and Europe,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Um, but yeah, that's
I love
the.
that.
I would love. I would love it if more people do live video games. But I saw that nobody picked it up. That's that's a little bit sad. I
Yeah.
am.
It's challenging to monetize is one of the biggest things, and to scale, because if you have to be there to play, then it's of course hard for people to play.
Well,
Um,
what we did was that we streamed the game as well. So what
okay.
we could, when I did a show, I was also on through Discord and through my own server running the game so that people could play that show at the same time at their
Mhm.
house, without needing to be present on the event. So we
Yeah.
did tournaments like that. Yeah, it was different. It was difficult in terms of people are more of an on-demand thing now. So
Mhm.
getting on certain time to play, that's weird. But
Yeah.
streamers do that. I think if a good streamer did it would work. I think
Yeah.
that's. I'm not a streamer, so I couldn't get the enough volume, of audience to make it
Of
work.
course.
Basically, so
Yeah. It's a really
something like.
fascinating, this is sort of a side topic, but it's a really fascinating subject that I have done some prototypes for, which is games that are meant to be played between the audience and the streamer in a streaming event, where the audience is literally playing the game with the streamer. There's been a couple of games that have done that pretty well, and it's a super fascinating space that I feel like is not actually very well explored yet. Before we get to, I want to make sure that we have some time for community questions. So if you have questions for Nando here about marketing, about data in particular, or about his history, leave them in the chat in whatever platform you're currently on, and I will ask them of him in just a moment. Before then, I want to get that 101 to marketing. What are some of the things that people like? If somebody had a micro budget for incorporating data that's going to get them the most out of their budget. And when I say budget, I mean like time, effort. What things should they be plugging into their game, and then what metrics should they be specifically looking at, and how do they interpret it?
I'm guessing is Google Analytics or Firebase would be the cheapest,
Okay.
but that's mostly on mobile. I don't
Hmm.
think on a desktop PC you can hook that up.
Yep.
There are others, like Game Analytics. There are quite a few, but well, Unity has its own
Yep.
analytics. Maybe that would be the easiest
Hmm.
um, way. And what metrics? I mean, just check on the mostly the tutorial. Mostly
Okay.
the tutorial
Hmm.
is the most important.
Basically, just seeing how people are dropping off during the tutorial, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, you need to place an event like like a threshold for each and every one of the tutorial steps that you understand that need to happen,
Hmm.
and then levels or whatever days or whatever your game has. But basically, that drop off is key. Most people are like churning there, like on the
Hmm.
first 5 minutes. It's it that it On desktop, maybe they spend a little bit more time, like 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, quite a lot. But on mobile, it's 1 minute maybe. They don't give you much opportunity. So if that something doesn't work because of memory or because the tutorial is not as clear, um, you're. I mean, I hate tutorials myself. I hate them. So we try to avoid doing tutorials, but we had to. We we learned that if we didn't do the tutorials, people turn worse.
Hmm.
So we need to over explain sometimes. That super sucks. It super sucks. But at least on mobile, it's very needed.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a metaphor that I've always liked for tutorials. If your game is a highway, even if it's this like beautiful, wonderful highway, your player still needs to get onto that highway. There's still an on ramp to the highway, and so if that on ramp sucks, if it's like rickety and there's potholes and it's not very well thought out, it's got a hard curve on it, the player's just never going to get onto that beautiful highway. So the tutorial really is the very beginning of your game, and if people aren't getting through your tutorial, they're of course never going to play the main game. The tutorial
Then,
beginning intro is one of the main places that you lose people. They'll start playing and be like, "Yeah, this isn't really for me."
yeah, and the tutorial begins before opening the game. I mean, there's a lot of interesting and smart ways of doing tutorials. For instance, fast animations during the loading screen. Like the loading animation screen can be how you input the game, what's the input of your game.
Mm.
Or for instance, there's a lot of games that do this, that where you start the game and the way to work the menu to start the game is using the controls of the game. So maybe it's a character that needs to walk over a button that says start, and so you're already learning how to play without doing that, and that's the tutorial maybe, right? So yeah, I think that even Plants vs Zombies had the joke that when you went to the settings and you clicked on tutorial, there was a paper all beaten, like, and it said the zombies ate it. And the joke they made is, oh, our game has no tutorial because it's super intelligent. But that wasn't true. The first 3 levels of Plant vs Zombies are a
Or
tutorial.
a tutorial, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. I like the simple statement. Your tutorial starts before the game begins. It's pretty interesting. So I think what happens with tutorials, I actually recommend generally that teams don't start their tutorial until pretty late in the process, actually, because the game will naturally change, and so you don't want to teach somebody how to play a game that's different in 6 months from now. But what I see happen all the time is, as a result of that recommendation, people won't start the tutorial until too late in the process when they're already in crunch time, and then the tutorial winds up being this really rushed experience. It's the quickest thing they can get on screen to describe how to play the game. But your tutorial, I actually adore studying tutorial design. I got my start at a brain training company called Lumosity, and so as a result, I kind of love the process of like teaching through your game, teaching as a result of game development. And it's a fascinating field into and of itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tutorial doesn't need to only teach the user of the controls or how to experience the game.
Mhm.
Uh, it should always also teach you that the game is fun.
Mhm.
So, and that's the part, the ugly part. I mean, in terms of the most labor intensive side, how do I make a tutorial where the game, I'm trying to teach them that the game is fun, but it's super boring to do a tutorial because you have to go through the steps. So what we did was, like, on our game, when you start Super Farming Mode, you have all your farm full, you have all your powers, you have everything, so you can do anything, so you can fly, you can do whatever you want, and we are showcasing what the game is about. And then we strip all that from you and you start from zero, but you got the experience to understand, oh, this game is going to be like this. Similar, Plants vs Zombies does that with a video. If you start Plants vs Zombies right now, they showcase you like a 5-second video of all the plants shooting and lots of zombies running around, and see what the hell was that. And then they begin, but they showed you that because if not, it's super boring. I'm planting sunflowers and waiting for the sun. It's super boring. But why I'm doing this? Okay, no, this is why you are doing it. So
Yeah.
that's the most difficult part in a tutorial. And in terms of data, I think that it's not a bad idea to launch games without tutorial, but with the data analytics setting with the steps and everything. So you can see exactly where the people are dropping off, even without a tutorial. I'm not saying a full launch, but just a soft launch or maybe a launch between friends or whatever. And you can check the data there and get them some feedback, verbal feedback from people. That would help. That helps a lot. You need to actually launch the earliest as possible, mostly if it's a mobile product.
Yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me of the Metroidvania trope where you start with all of the gear and you like kick total ass for a little bit and then you lose everything. That's the exact same thing. You get to experience that the game is awesome and go, okay, yes, this is worth playing, and then continue playing after that, learn more after that. I want to make sure we have some time for community questions, so we have a couple of lined up on deck here. First one is from Drew. Drew asks, what's the best way to test a new or innovative concept that might not have a lot of data around it, but still make informed decisions?
my follow-up question to that would be, why wouldn't there be data around it? There's always data around everything.
But I
So
see. What I see a lot of the time is just the community is still pretty small. So if I don't have, let's say, I don't have a big enough player base, I don't have a big enough community to get more than a couple of data entries, what do I do?
okay.
Andrew, please correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Of course, you need people. You need more people, to get to play your thing, in order to make an informed decision, right? Because if you don't have at least 100 inputs, it's little,
Mhm.
It's statistically, you can ignore it completely.
Mhm.
So yeah, what we do is something called before launching something. What we do is try to get a lot of beta testers to play for free on forums or whatever. And what we do is our a pre-analytic approach. It's analytics, but it's different. What we do is we show the game to friends or people, no, not friends, people you don't know, but you get from forums, whatever. Maybe 100, 200. You give the game for free. And what you do is you ask for specific questions on a form. What we do with that form is that we export all the answers of the questions that we made. And what we do is we ignore most of the whatever people say, unless more than one said the same thing. So what we do is we do like a board of what's the score of that comment. And we don't do a lot of questions. We do two questions. What did you like? What you didn't like?
Mm.
And what we take is when somebody says what we want, what they put in the place what they liked, we don't read it. We just read the what we didn't like. And while we do that, then we do a board. And when we see that all the people, there's a lot of comments that were said only once, we ignore that comment. And when there's two, okay. If there's three, okay, top. And then, we pile it down up, and we get 10 people who say the same thing. Okay, we have to work on that. That's our pre-analytics approach before launching with Google Analytics or whatever data, actual data.
Yeah.
And that's our best approach, because you cannot hear your best friend. It happened to me so many times. Oh, look at this game!
Still happens to me.
It happens to everyone.
They say it emphatically. Yeah.
Yeah, they say, "Oh, I don't like this. This is wrong. You have to change it because blah blah blah." And you go to your house and thinking, "Oh, I have to change that," and what a pain in the ass. And then you don't hear that feedback anywhere else. Never. So it was just one person. That doesn't matter. Everybody's going to have an opinion. So
I love. Yeah. That is one of the things I love about running this show is finding these really, really simple pieces of advice that I think are valuable to everybody. And I love that. That is such a simple piece of advice. You get the feedback, you just do a survey or something like that. Even if it's a small sample size, you listen to the ones where there's more than one. That's simple. When something is mentioned more than once, it is more statistically significant. But even when the data size is small enough where you can't really talk in terms of statistical significance, you still know at least that it isn't just like this player kind of doesn't like this type of game, and instead it's genuinely something that players tend to feel. Love that. So ask what they like, ask what they don't like, prioritize the ones that get 2, 3, or more mentions.
Yes, and another thing that we do on that questionnaire is, before that, those two questions that they like and not like, what we do is we ask them if they played similar games, and we do a bunch of like a radio, or the genre, because it also happens to me that we get a lot of like bad feedback from people that don't like the genre.
Exactly.
So those had to be ignored as well.
Yep.
So that's data, right? Be smart on what you have and how you're going to use that information. Why should you listen to somebody who hates playing, action games, and you made an action game? Why would you listen to that, right?
Imagine if you were making Stardew Valley and somebody who's a huge From Software, loves Elden Ring and Dark Souls, plays the game and gives you advice. Like, probably they don't have much to say. That's going to be very helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, I want to get at least one more in. I have another one lined up here from Petunio. What are your plans to keep promoting Super Farming Boy based on the current data you guys have? So if you are willing to share, Is there any data that you recently have been looking at and ways you might interpret it?
Yes, what we might probably do with the game is make it a free to play based on the data we see, because what we see is a premium game. It hasn't been selling a lot, unfortunately, but we're getting these awards and we're getting this recognition, and what we are seeing is that the retention inside the game is super high, like super high, and it's like 10 times better than our previous free to play games. And we have user acquisition experience, like running ads on YouTube and whatever. So the data that we have is, okay, we are good doing user acquisition. We have a very high retaining product. Okay, this might work. Our previous game got 10 times worse retention in comparison, and it was almost profitable. So that should mean that this one should be profitable.
Interesting.
So that's our. But that completely can be wrong, though. It was things change. Acquiring a user is much more expensive now than it was back then. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work, but that's our data. That's the data that we have now and what we are doing with it. But we also haven't launched yet on doing a premium game. Also, it's completely different approach. We haven't launched yet on Nintendo, on Xbox, and on PlayStation, and we might have good luck in terms of featurings as we did on Apple, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Very cool. That's a great example of a real live ops decision based upon data. Amazing. All right, we are going to wrap up the episode now. So we like to do two different things here. The first one is an extra credit assignment. Nando, is there something that we can recommend all the listeners do in the next week that'll take about an hour to help them practice some of what we talked about here today?
Yes, I have thought of something, but it wasn't data related.
Okay.
So I would have to think of something else.
Maybe let's do it. What is a practice? How could they practice some data tracking and usage?
I'm guessing that most people here do have something running or doing something. So I'm guessing just getting to whatever that is, the way that it is doesn't even have to be with Google Analytics. You can just save on a notepad or an .txt or txt file, whatever, how many times people do X thing, like the tutorial, or what would you think would be? I think what would you think would be the minimum time needed or steps needed to be taken for a user to love your game, right? So what's that? It should be to end the tutorial. It should be, but maybe it's not that because you haven't done the tutorial yet or whatever. So decide how much of this of my game should be played before they are falling in love into it, and they blah blah blah, and then set up steps to get to that. So maybe it's 5 steps, maybe it's a tutorial, maybe it's not a tutorial because you haven't done it yet, but maybe it's 5 steps, maybe it's 10 steps, maybe it should be not a lot of steps, right? But whatever there is, and measure them in whichever way, and then try it out, and maybe uploading a demo to Itch.io or whatever, and see what happens. See if that's working, and if it's not working, try to figure out why, and iterate, right?
Interesting. All right, so yeah, no, I like it. Play with the tutorial for your game is what I heard there. So identify where in the tutorial you believe that your player should have fallen in love with the game. And then create discrete tracking moments, actual data that you can track to have a couple of steps before that, and then play your game with the real audience and see where they fall. If you have a game, obviously you can do this. If you don't have a game at this point, you can absolutely make some kind of paper prototype or similar that you can simulate playing the game with a real human and run a playtest with a real human and see where they fall along that process to practice some of this data tracking. All right, before we say goodbye, Nando, this is your chance to promote anything you would like to promote and give us any last words of wisdom.
Yes, well, Super Farmer will be up we are really close to launching on Xbox.
Okay.
So that's cool. It should be like within 1 or 2 months. and after that would be Nintendo and PlayStation. So that's basically it. Also, as an announcement, we are probably going to drop the price for Super Farming Boy for maybe less than $10, like at the base price, just to get more people playing it. And eventually we'll be running a free to play. So yeah, that's the only announcement that I have right now. And in terms of words of wisdom, I'm not what's the word? I don't know how wise I am, but but what I can tell is that personally, I'm a person who iterates a lot, and I don't get frustrated, and I think that's a great quality, and I think that's a very needed quality for you guys and gals and whoever, everyone here. Don't get frustrated because you're going to suck a lot before you do it right, and that was my experience, and that's mostly the experience that I've seen. And this is a very weird example. I'm guessing people here are very, very young,
Mhm.
and I'm mostly very old. I'm 43 years old,
Extremely.
and I am extremely old. So I really love a very old sitcom called I Love Lucy. I don't know if you've ever heard. I'm guessing you heard it, but
Yes, I
I'm
have.
guessing people.
Mhm.
And I'm reading the book, the autobiography that Lucille Ball wrote.
Mm.
And if you read that book, and it's a completely, you can do this everywhere, right? Um, but if you read the book, the amount of times that that woman failed and how successful she was later on life, it's incredible. And you read the book and you say, okay, this person, how come she never frustrated? How come she kept going and going with all the things that were happening to her, and how much she sucked because she was really, really lame and bad on what she was doing. So okay, that goes for all of us, right? We need
Mhm.
to, go the long mile, go do the long run.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
exactly, yes.
Beautiful. I love that as a last. I love that as a last lesson, last takeaway. I make jokes sometimes that my gods are the gods of iteration, and it's absolutely true. The more that you can detach your ego from the process and make it about iteration and make failure not only okay, but like almost an exciting thing. Be like, oh, okay, cool. The game failed here. Like finding out, for instance, that 10% of people are dropping off during one discrete data event is like awesome. You're like, oh, perfect. Now I know what to go fix. Um, and I see a lot of people who are just getting started take feedback very harshly. It's hard for them to hear that their game is not right or that the player is not having fun. That is a part of this process. It's a part of the art of game development. Just like you're chipping away stone while carving stone that isn't right for the end product, the end statue. You're chipping away the crap that your game doesn't need, and making it slowly better and better until you have a wonderful game.
The
So
thing
what
is
a
that
perfect final sentiment.
Yeah, the thing is that people get critiqued on their game or whatever they're doing, and what they don't understand is that what that critique is actually helping you make the game better.
Yeah.
And that's how you should understand feedback. When you listen to feedback, you say, "Oh no, but what I wanted to do was this and that," and you're not understanding, and you get defensive. That's the worst approach. I could understand
Pointless.
somebody being defensive, like a movie director. I can
Mhm.
understand that, but a video game is it has user experience. You need the player to do things.
Mhm.
It's not just like they are watching and making a decision off from what they are seeing. They need to uh, experience the game. So all feedback, that's one of most people are right.
Mhm. All
Most
feedback is
people,
good feedback.
all feedback is right because that's what they feel. So that's honest. Of course, you need to filter what you need to do for your product because
Mhm.
maybe you're tailoring it for certain audiences, and that. But don't take that as a frustration. Don't take that as a critique on you. It's a critique on the product, and it's a critique that will make the product better.
Mhm.
So, and that it should be a happy moment. It sounds weird, but it should be a happy moment to get to read that, and not
Mhm.
a sad moment. Oh no, what I did was wrong. No, no, no. We'll work on it.
Mhm.
So that yeah, it's
Amazing.
good at that.
Fantastic final lesson. Awesome. All right. So we are going to wrap up today now. So as always, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Nando, for giving us some thoughts and answering some questions for us. We will be here every week, Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to join us. There's links to the Discord as well as anything we mentioned today, such as Super Farming Boy or Nando himself in the description down below. Otherwise, I think that's going to do it. If you're here for the roundtable, I'm going to launch that event in like 2 minutes. So I'd love to have you all stick around and give us some thoughts on how we redesign in 2026. But otherwise, Nando, thank you for being here. This has been a great episode.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Goodbye, all. Take care. I'll see you in like a minute if you're here for the roundtable. Adios.
Bye, guys.